about some of the things that we have coming up. So this weekend, we have our Manifesting an Abundance Circle for Astara tomorrow on Saturday. That's going to be huge. We're going to be navigating money blocks and
there we go.
Hey, there you are.
Yeah, I was in here this whole time. I kept like sending a request. I was like, what is going on? But it's always something, so we just have to laugh about it at this point.
Oh, that's just it. And it's part of that is about flowing with things, because I knew that things would work out. And we used to do lives where I would have, or we would do episodes where sometimes we would have a little bit of technical issues at first, and I would get kind of stressed out, and I would sit there awkwardly waiting for you to join, and filling the silence with nothing. So I was just starting to tell everybody a little bit about our circle that we're having tomorrow.
Yes.
And it's going to be really addressing the fact that the year starts next week, the astrological new year, right? And we have, and with spring and Astara and the new life, so to speak, of the year. The winter is, we can look at the winter as this dead space between, well, life and death. And it's this dead space from January to April where we're not actually in the thick of it yet. We're still hermit mode. Yeah. We're still in this, in the space between, so to speak. Or as the metaphor that I've used quite a bit lately is like standing in the middle of the hallway when you're waiting for the next door to open after the last one closed, and everybody kept telling you, hold on, don't be scared. I know this chapter's over, but when one door closes, another one opens, and you're like, well, that's cool. I ain't seeing the next door open yet. It's because that's winter. And that's living with the seasons teaches us that. And anyway, we're really excited to get underway with this manifesting and money block circle that we're having tomorrow night, because it's a chance to really tune in and go, okay, not only what is my year going to look like, but how am I coming into this year with a sense of abundance? And how can we look at your relationship with money and your relationship with wealth and attracting the life that you really crave? And that at the beginning of spring is going to be so powerful to go into this year with this willpower that says, I'm going to go after it.
Yeah.
Very conscious way.
Yeah. And we are nature. So we are so connected to the cyclical turning, and when we try to go against that, it ultimately creates so much chaos in our lives. And something that I thought of while you were talking was how a lot of people go into the new year with New Year's resolutions, right? And they're like, this is what I'm gonna do, and I'm gonna do it, and that's gonna be it, and and they're full force. And by the second or third week of the new year, like how many people are already like not doing that resolution? And it's because we're really still supposed to sit and just be in that
sitting still.
yeah. And so we're going against the grain of our natural cyclical nature. And so this is a beautiful way for us to tap in even that much deeper into our connection with the cyclical part of this new beginning, and just really like call in exactly the life that we're trying to envision for ourselves, and using this powerful time just for that. There's enough out there for everyone. So it's time for us to all see that we are worthy of that, and call it in.
Well, and what's interesting about that is my other job when I'm not facilitating and co-creating and content creating is doing personal training in a gym. And when I see that we see that so prevalently in the fitness industry, the whole like, what's your New Year's resolution, how are you going to go get it? And not only that, but people feeling pressured to like get their goals going in January and getting into their fitness journey and really thinking about making those shifts in their health at the beginning of January. And it's too soon after the holidays. You just had all these holidays with all this turkey and all of these good times with family and all this food, and then a couple of weeks later you're going to go from that, and I think it builds a really bad relationship with food at the same time when we go from that to, okay, well, now I need to get back into my fitness journey and back into my health because shame on me for having all that food last month.
Yeah.
Just yourself sit in all of the experiences that we're going to go through in the holiday season, right, without rushing into feeling like, well, now I need to work off that 10 pounds I gained over the holidays. So what? It's hibernation weight, whatever. We're going to crawl out of the cave in the spring, and if you really treated yourself like a humble bear, then you would just accept it and embrace it, right? The thing that I find funny about that is the people that do say, if we're talking about that in this sense, the people that do go and start a membership at some fitness club in January, what we see this huge spike of people getting into that in January, and they drop off by the end of the month, and they're lucky if half of those people are still doing it in March. And if you're still doing it in March, then you're going to stick with it, because not only have you kept with it, but now is the season to really be letting yourself get into the flow of the year more and pushing yourself to get out of the house and get more social, go for walks more, get more active. And so it's this living with the seasons that we've really been tuning into lately, right?
It really is. And I feel like with more and more people now waking up, there is this call to like know these things. And like I think I said this to you yesterday when we were talking, but like I feel like we're at this place now where like sometimes I forget what it was like when I started out. And sometimes I forget like all the questions I had and things like that. So holding these kinds of circles and really having like the information of like what this time of year is, or like how you can use it for whatever, and like using it for your healing, any kind of shadow work is beautiful. because I would have loved to have had that when I started out. You know what I mean? So we're cultivating this space for just, you know, people who want to know, and they are coming, you know. So I'm excited for our circle. For those of you who are watching, or even listening to the replay, we huddled yesterday, like, to like really fine tune and talk flow, and like it's gonna be an awesome circle. Like, you guys are in for a treat. So if you haven't RSVP'd for that yet, you definitely want to go reserve your spot, because it's gonna be awesome. It's gonna be awesome.
Big time. So let's talk about the other big thing, or the elephant in the room, so to speak, today. Made sure I had a green mug and green shirt on, because it's St. Patrick's Day. And, you know, I'm going to be honest. When I started on my spiritual journey a few years ago, well, not more than a few years ago now, but the point is, about 5 or 6 years ago, I started to feel very weird about celebrating St. Patrick's Day in a celebratory, woohoo, leprechauns and St. Pattys kind of way, like, ooh, everybody's Irish for a day and all that. And I realized the more I was on my path that it was because I was uncomfortable with celebrating genocide, and it was this really conflicted feeling that I had for a long time, because when I understood and started to learn more about these holidays, and whether it's Sabbats, like the fact that Easter was taken from a star and turned into Easter and a Christian holiday, or the fact that you have St. Pattys, which kids are told is as this celebrating St. Patrick and what he did for Ireland. At the same time, I don't think most people even really understand the depth of that. As a child, I was told that it was all about leprechauns, and we had these cute little games, like making a leprechaun trap to trap leprechauns that were going to and leave cookies downstairs. And my mom was adorable. She had these little traditions that she did when we were kids, where she would like sprinkle little gold coins all over the house, and treat it like leprechauns came and left us cookies. And I honestly loved that about her, because she made holidays like that fun, and really she really did include the magic in things like that. But then as I got older, I learned the depth of it, and what the history behind it really meant. Well, what are we celebrating with St. Patrick? What did he do, right? Well, he drove the snakes out of Ireland. Okay. What does that mean?
And what was wrong with the snakes to begin with? Like,
right?
First of all.
Into that, and you find out, oh, that meant that he was responsible for the genocide and removal of the Druids and the Celts. And I get chills just saying that, because it's true. It's this celebration of the Protestant religion taking over from the Celts and removing what was once there. And that was why for a long time I felt so icky about celebrating such a thing. And so we're here talking about it today to bring light to the fact that we don't need to shy away from it. We don't need to treat it like it's this day to scorn the Protestants or the Catholics or anything like that, but simply to talk truth and to share the fact that we could look at it from a whole different spin, right? That I could still wear green. I could still celebrate it in a whole different light. I could celebrate the fact that we're still here.
Yep.
I could celebrate the fact that in the last couple of years, I found out from diving into a family tree that my mom sent me, found out that I have ties to Belfast in the 1700s and ancestors that were from Ireland.
Mm-hmm.
And so that gets me really feeling a certain way, because we can celebrate the fact that in this day and age we have the biggest pagan reenactment and reawakening in history.
In history, yeah.
And St. Patrick failed.
Yeah. Didn't they all?
You have roots too, don't you?
I do, actually. I didn't know it at first. My first connection with like any sort of, Celtic ties in this life originally was when the Morrigan came around. And she over there, see her up there? Beautiful. But anyway, so it was when she came around, and then me too, last year, I believe it was, last year or the year before that, when I was doing some like digging in my tree, I found connections to Wales and a few other places, but Wales was like the big one that hit me. And for a while on my path, I did walk the Druid path, and it was very brief. It was like a hop skip to shamanism, but it was like that transition point for me. And that's I think when I really like learned the truth about St. Patty's Day. But growing up, it never sat right with me. And now as a spiritually awakened, healing woman, like I know that I have the gift of clear cognizance, so I just know that I know things. But as a kid, like, I didn't know that, but I did know that, sitting in public school and sitting in, class and hearing these like pieces of history being told to us that just never sat right with me. I didn't believe it. Like, I remember the first time that I saw a picture of the Great Sphinx in Egypt. I was like, that's not its original face. Like, I just knew. And same thing with St. Patty's Day. It didn't feel right to celebrate. And then also, like, what's with the pinching? Like, why are we running around fucking hurting each other? Like, if anything at all. Like, yeah.
I remember I thought, and then end up getting pinched 10 times that day.
Yeah. I would just tell people my eyes are green. You can fuck off. Like,
me too.
And that's why I'm wearing black today, though, because you know what? You're like, what you said is so true about how, like, this isn't something that comes up for us to like go at, the faiths that were involved in this. This is a time for us to, like you said, tell the truth, speak the truth, because it's not out there. I'll be the one to like say, like, public schools here in the US, they fail us so bad. So bad.
Right? And even I don't look at anything like this as anti-religion one way or another. Only perhaps the certain faces were behind it. It's kind of it reminds me of a a joke that a good friend of ours, Mira, told just the other day. A friend of hers said, or somebody on her page said something
Oh, yeah.
like you should be ashamed of yourself talking about things like that. Jesus loves you. And she went, Republican Jesus or OG Jesus?
Yes, yes. I told a couple different people about that too, because like it was just so it's amazing, and that's like a whole other topic in itself. I can't even get into that because that's a whole woo. But yes, and so but so we can take this time, because it's absolutely, it's not about like, oh well, those people did this and like you know, because this is a similar conversation that we see across the board. Like it's a very similar conversation, like even in the native community, you know. So but what we can use this day as is a day to honor those who did lose their lives, those who didn't survive, to honor the bloodlines that may have ended then and there because there wasn't a chance, you know. We can also honor our ancestors who survived for us to be here. And even if they're not our ancestors, we can honor them, because really, at the end of the day, that's what they're afraid of, is all of us, no matter what walk of life, no matter what your path is, coming together. And how powerful would it be if all of us had this realization that this is the truth about this horrible day that we have been gaslit throughout human history to celebrate, and instead grieve and honor and mourn the lives lost and celebrate the fact that we're still here. And the mixture of this energy, we can send healing back. We can send healing. Like this can be a powerful, powerful, powerful moment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, and you know what's interesting is think about pivotal points in the year. Typically, the other time of the year that we are talking about ancestors is in October. And at the same time, there's this synchronicity that is also right around fall equinox, right?
Yeah.
And so here we are just before spring equinox, and the veil feels very thin.
Oh yeah.
And I was thinking about ancestors this week or this morning, and I thought, and I popped into my head too that I know I've told you many times that, I mean, you know all about the fact that I observe the wheel of the year with the runic wheel fitting right over top of it,
Yeah.
over the astrological wheel of the year. And Othala, the last rune of the Elder Futhark, fits right at the end of Pisces season, right before Aries, and so we're in that energy right now. And the point that I'm making is it's all about ancestors and home, coming home, making this connection that within Othala are these layers of understanding that you are the ancestor that, or you're the descendant that your ancestor dreamed about or wished into existence, that would one day break cycles for your family line, that you are, right?
Yeah.
That you are the ancestor that your descendants are going to be calling on one day. That you are also the descendant that your forefathers and foremothers hoped would one day share the truth about certain histories. And so I thought it was so beautiful how poetic that was, that I've been working through Othala quite a bit lately and really seeing where it pops up in different places. And when I woke up this morning and I knew we were going to be talking about decolonizing St. Patrick's Day, I thought, wow, that is so Othala.
Yeah, it definitely is. Also, too, something that popped into my mind when you were saying that was how too this is also like naturally like the time of year when we see all the birds are starting to come back out now, right? They're starting to do their little dances and they're starting to sing, and we're also bears are coming out of hibernation, like the earth is coming alive again. So we see these, like for instance, like just honing in on the bear for a second, like the bears are waking up, and so families are waking up. You know what I mean? And they're waking up, they're stretching out, they're coming out to eat. They've been laying in slumber for so long. And so it also speaks to that energy, and just of the fact that at least in our hemisphere, the earth is waking back up.
Yeah, at least in our hemisphere, for
Yeah.
sure. And that being said, I just want to preface for anybody who struggled with their morning routine through the last few months, through the don't be afraid, you're not alone. I was notorious for hitting the snooze button until 7:30, until I absolutely had to get up the last, and sleeping in as long as I could, because there was just this part of me that really felt like I needed the extra sleep. Hell, I even had portions in November, December where I was just feeling through a lot of burnout, and I just let myself. And
Yeah.
instead of letting, we're we're getting a little bit away from the holiday itself at this point, but the it's all around this time of the year. It's and I just wanted to touch on that because I had this intuitive feeling that needed to
Ooh.
be said. If you're feeling any sense of, if anybody out there has been feeling any sense of self shame or making themselves feel bad about not sticking to their routine lately, that's okay. It wasn't even spring yet.
Mm-hmm.
So let yourself feel through that. Let yourself have 3 months in the year where you go internal and you hermit and you sleep longer and you honor your body's call to rest without shaming yourself and without giving yourself a hard time or gaslighting yourself into feeling like you should be doing more, because heaven forbid we don't need to be capitalistly productive 12 months a year.
Yeah. Well, and not just that, but if you think about it, that's how society is like, that's how it has raised us and our parents and their parents to be, is work, work, work. Like you're born, you go to school as soon as you can. The goal of school is to put you as a functioning member of society, but the way that they go about doing that is like you have to go to work, pay bills, work, work, work until you die. That is not what we came here to do. And there is power to taking back our rest. There is power to listening to our bodies. And the thing is, we are in a very powerful time in human history. We're in a very revolutionary time in human history. We're in a very prophetic time in human history. Because globally, there are so many cultures that have stories that call upon this time in human history, whether it was called the Great Awakening, the Golden Age, like there's many different terms for it. So as all of these people are beginning to wake up and wake up and wake up and wake up, it's stirring the right kind of energies because we were supposed to do this. And so now, as we're all waking up, we're all becoming more in tune with ourselves, with each other, with the world, with nature. So in all of that, we're also in tune with other things. And so we need to give ourselves grace, because I, for one, would notice that around this time of year, every year, I would get super heavy. And it wasn't until about 5 years ago, that I finally realized like what it was. And the reason I would start to get heavy around March 1st. March 1st is the start date of the Salem witch trials. And so
ancestral in your bones that knows that.
yeah,
right?
it's like energetic. And so a lot, like we have to give ourselves grace, because we're so powerful. We are so naturally powerful. So we are tuned into these things. So we might be called to, yeah, you might have 30 things on your to-do list today, but you need to let that shit go. If spirit is telling you that you need to just sit down and let the downloads come in, and it might not make sense to you. Like when I sit down and I have downloads coming in, I don't understand them when they come in. It's like I sit down and I almost dissociate. Like it's almost like I'm there, but I'm not there. And then after that's done happening, I get up and I go about my day, and as I'm sweeping the floor, as I'm like wiping down the counters, as I'm physically doing things with my body, the downloads start to make sense in a way I understand them, and I just start having these like aha moments. And so if you're being called to sit down and like just be okay with it, because there's a reason, even if you don't know what it is. Like I didn't know that was what I was experiencing, but like every year or on March 1st, that is one of my least productive days physically. Spiritually, I'm in the realms, you know.
Oh, absolutely. And I I had a very powerful experience. One of my first March 1st that I was very practicing, and I was really into my path and my craft. Little side story, the first time I ever felt something big come up for that was on a night that I used to be a part of a coven locally with a few friends, and I gave a healing session to every member of my clan, and I had something big come up, each of them, that was literally tied to a life where they were burned or hanged or massacred in some way, shape, or form. It was so eerie how synchronistic it was for each one of them. Every session I did that day, something about a death came up, or something that they needed to clear and have come up so they could heal in this lifetime, and we could clear it. And I thought, wow, how powerful.
This is that lifetime. Like, I'm telling you, this is such a potent piece of human history. And that's why it's so powerful and so important to have these conversations, like about the sacred self-rest, about, you're a human being. So just be sometimes, and just be okay with that, you know?
You don't need to be caught up in the capitalist need to be productive.
Yeah, that
12 months.
That way is moving out.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. And then also having this conversation about the truth behind holidays like this, and we're going to have more conversations like this moving forward, because it's important that the truth gets out there. and not in a way where, you know, we're grabbing our fucking pitchforks and whatever and being like, oh, you guys did. No, because that's not the vibration that we're at.
No, exactly. That's why that's not necessarily the vibration of two shots sitting on the couch just talking about the truth of it all with no hate, nothing but love, right? It makes me giggle when I say things like that, but at the same time, I'm happy to have these kind of conversations, shining a light on things in a way that I just had the thought pop into my head. Sometimes we need to just pause to find the right words, right? What popped into my head was people don't listen when you yell at them.
Yeah, you tune out. You're like, I'm not gonna listen to this. Like, a surefire way to get me to check out of a conversation is to raise your voice at me. I mean, it could go a whole other way, but if I start laughing after you raise your voice, then you need to walk out of the room. But that's a whole other
Talk truth, and we talk about the truth behind certain holidays like this, or the truth behind genocide and massacres and conversions and things like that. It's something that is so much more palatable when we do it with love and understanding than when we're yelling at the camera or yelling at somebody and doing it in such an angry way.
or even when you God.
Personally, I don't understand why people are going to listen if they pop on camera and start yelling the message out and being angry about it.
Right.
That kind of gets me thinking about the sacred rage that we were talking about last episode. It's like, yeah, it's great to be angry. Yeah, okay, be pissed off. But
there's a way
focus.
to build it. Yeah.
There's a way to wield your sword, right? You don't have to come in brandishing it above your head with like this sword.
There's a time and place. There's a time and place.
Right?
Yeah.
Instead of treating it like you've got your pitchfork in the air or waving it around, you can have it.
Yeah.
But it can be in its sheath, ready to come out.
And like, how can you, instead of maybe using this as a weapon, how instead can you use that as a power of change? Because ultimately that's what, like, if we're talking like shadow and not, sacred rage is using it as fuel for change rather than I'm gonna go fuck shit up. You know.
I just have another really cute metaphor pop in my head. Sacred rage is the dad who sits at the kitchen table when the boy comes in to pick up the daughter for a date. Instead of aiming the shotgun at him and scaring the shit out of him, he just sits there and cleans it.
Yeah.
He doesn't need to be threatening.
Right.
But you know it's there.
He doesn't need to speak his boundaries. He doesn't even need to say anything. It is already, like, with his energy, it is already loud enough. Like, yeah. Funny. But there we go. But see how funny that is.
So that just made me giggle.
Yeah, no, it's hilarious. And it also ties perfectly into this, though, because, you know, there is a bit of that sacred rage that comes with the survival of and the truth of being told that this is something that we've been celebrating for so long, and the truth of it is this ugly, horrible traumatic thing. But then that's where the sacred, hi baby, that's where the sacred rage comes in. When I get off, okay? But that's where it comes in, because instead of us getting angry about it and lashing out, we're taking that anger, we're taking in like, wow, like that's what happened,
Mm.
and letting it and sitting with it and honoring it, and you only feel like an emotion only really stays with you, like the actual energy of it, for 90 seconds or something. So if you can sit with that and honor it, not looking at it as this is a bad feeling or a bad energy or a bad whatever, like throw that word out. This is what I'm feeling. What is it trying to tell you? Okay, well, it's telling you that it's making you really, really sad. And what would make you feel good is if you lit a candle and lit an incense and maybe said a prayer to those who lost their lives. Or, maybe it's being proud of your Celtic roots and being like, I'm the snake that survived, and, going out and just really owning that. Or maybe it's none of those things, and maybe it's just sitting with the truth. But
Or
there it is.
been really feeling through this shamanic shedding and this connection to snake energy lately, that at first I was connecting in my Nordic way of connecting to Gander and all of that, but it's funny too, because I just recently got a snake and put it in my bedroom. And so there's all these little synchronicities, right? And at first I was thinking Jormungandr, but at the same time now we're on St. Patrick's Day, and the Druids were compared to as snakes. And at the same time, you don't have to be angry about it just to share truth with people. And I guess the other direction that I go with that is like, okay, so what do we do about it? We can talk to people about it. We can share that with them through the day. We can start little conversations with people. And I've been doing that for a few years now on certain holidays, where somebody will be, especially St. Patty's, because it's like everybody just gets into the spirit of St. Patrick's and king and like drinking green beer and wearing green and all of that.
Yeah.
It reminds me of being at Christmas time and telling everybody, this is a borrowed holiday, right? And Yule was originally a pagan holiday, and this is all just a farce. So your energy into St. Patrick's, and I could just imagine walking up to everybody who's wearing green and being like, you know what this is really about, right?
I mean, yeah.
Makes me giggle and laugh, and at the same time, I suppose when we let ourselves stay in that energy of seeing the humor of it and not letting the sacred rage take over, it's like it kind of feels like my inner child is sort of walking hand in hand with the sacred rage of the divine feminine and the Morrigan that's really pissed off and angry. And so in a way, that giddy giggliness kind of helps keep the rage at bay.
Yeah.
And it helps see the lightheartedness of some of those things. And at the same time, yeah, we can have conversations with people about it, but we don't need to start every conversation with, like, you're celebrating genocide, right?
Well, and that's the thing is, so I like how you put that, where, like you said, your inner child is kind of walking with the sacred rage, divine feminine. So Maka, one of the Morrigan's Trinity, she is, which is the one that I connect with the most. She is activism. She is for the children. She is for fresh running water and like bodies of water, like rivers and streams and lakes and such. Well, it's funny because instead of like how you put it, like instead of letting the sacred rage take over, really, because there's a difference between rage and then sacred rage, but instead what you did was you did sit with the sacred rage and you did listen to her, and what she showed you was, this is where that's coming from. You know what I mean? And that's the beauty of the sacred rage. Like, is really, if you look at her like that divine, fierce but loving mother who's telling us, okay, like, I know you want to go over there and I know you want to snatch that person by their head, but is that really going to help you or that person? Like, yeah, they did you wrong, okay, but what about this energy you're sitting in right now? Like, how can you use that to enforce boundaries, to tell you what you need to do for you, you know? And ultimately that's what you did, and you found out that, you know, it's from that place of, instead of, because no one is going to learn if you're coming from from an angry place, anyone. And so we found ourselves in this beautiful spot where we understand this, and really we take this in, we alchemize it with our bodies, with our practices, and find a way to put it out there in a loving, educational way without the heavy. And it's still going to bring up heavy for others because it's a heavy topic, but then as a collective in our own individual places, we are alchemizing it together. We're giving each other the tools to alchemize it together. You know, if you're feeling some heavy shit, drop it in the comments. Like, and maybe we can help you work through it, you know? Like, these are heavy times, but these are important conversations to have.
There's, and it's funny you mention it's a heavy topic, because I have had times where I'll be on the phone with you and we'll be talking about something really heavy, and then either my partner or somebody else that I might be with will hear some of the things that we're talking about, and it's like, for us it's a Tuesday and we're just talking about genocide, and somebody else will go, wow, that sounds like a really heavy topic you guys are talking about. And I go, well, okay, sit with it. How does it make you feel? You know, we hear about topics like that, and when we hear about, and we hear people say things like, well, the truth about this holiday is not just simply wearing green and being Irish for a day, but celebrating the fact that this piece of history happened, understanding that it did, and at the same time. So the positive spin that I can put on it is, yeah, hell, yeah, be Irish for a day. Honor the dead. Honor the Celtic ancestors who were converted, or who were literally prosecuted or put to the stake, or part of the witch trials, because of that. Like, let's touch on that for a second, right? You mentioned the Salem witch trials started on March 1st. And that was back in the 1600s. And for St. Patrick's, that still includes the witch trials in Ireland. So sit with that. And if it's a heavy topic, think about why it is for you.
Right. And also, like, reminding everyone that's watching how powerful you are as an individual, and how healing when we feel it in our bodies, how it can, as you're healing it within yourself, you're recognizing it, you're honoring it, you're sitting with it, you're listening to it, giving it what it needs, you're also sending that healing out. It's rippling out to those who are so far back calling for that healing. Because ultimately, when they were going through those things, you don't think that they were crying out for someone to save them, crying out for someone to tell their story, to do right by them? Here we are, and this isn't saying that we're gonna, like, we're in a beautiful time where it's time to heal. It's time to heal and tell the truth. It's time for truth and reconciliation across the board. It's time to decolonize the way that we celebrate people and holidays that are based around genocide and these evil, evil things that we have been told for generations is something completely else. It's time for us to start trusting that, what we were told in public school in the textbooks is the way. It's absolutely not. I was just watching a video that was sent to me yesterday from my mother-in-law, and it was an interview. A guy was talking to Buffy St. Marie, and she was talking about how, she would go off in the summer times and she would be with all of her indigenous relatives all summer long, and then she would go back home to, I think it was Maine, but she would go back, and she was in public school where this teacher was talking about how Columbus founded America and how Indians are dead and they're like extinct and all this other stuff, and she's like, wait a minute, first of all, I'm Native, second of all, I was just with all my Native family all summer, but we're extinct. And this is why it's important to have these conversations. Yeah. So it's so important to have these conversations.
Yeah. Wow.
It's time.
It's amazing some of the things that kids in public school or some of the things that are in the textbooks that just are so far from the truth. Like there are certain parts of Canada and the States where there's certain textbooks that would even word it as the Great Migration or the disbursement when the English and the French came over here, and the natives saw that the Europeans showed up, they moved and went, oh, here, you can have some of this land.
No.
Wow, are we really teaching kids that?
For real. Look, listen to this. Last year or the year before that, they took the Trail of Tears out of our public school textbooks. Mm-hmm. So what does that tell you? That in a couple generations, kids in school aren't even going to know what the hell the Trail of Tears is. Are you kidding me? Absolutely not. That is unacceptable. But like, that is just a sprinkle on the cake. That is what they have been feeding us, and why it is so important now to have these conversations. And now we're on YouTube. Now we've got our podcast we just started yesterday, and so we're on TikTok. We're on all these platforms, and now it's time to get this word out there because it's so important. Like, now is the time. I really feel it, and I'm really glad we started these segments when we did because yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Mom, underwear.
Let's sit with that for a minute. We're going to have to wrap up soon. So I want to, in the last few minutes, leave us with the thoughts and the tone of how are you going to take all of this knowledge and all of this understanding of what the holiday really stands for and what it means, and how are you going to go forward with that today? Are you going to still have a beer and drink and wear green and and connect with those Irish roots for the day, share truths with people, really sit with that if it needs to be sat with, feel through that. Look for you, understanding that it doesn't need to be this thing. Oh, well, I don't want to celebrate that anymore because it doesn't mean what I thought it meant. Something still shed light on the day itself.
You
Celebrate the reasons that we should be celebrating.
Yeah, exactly. And like you don't think that the ancestors don't want you celebrating them. You know what I mean? Like if anything else, if we're really decolonizing St. Patrick's Day, it's not St. Patrick's Day. It's in honor of the Celtic Ancestors Day, in honor of the Druids Day. Like let's go that far. You know what I mean? So how can you honor them? How can you reprogram this day to where you can honor them? And I want to hear in the comments, either at the end of the day, what you guys chose to do to honor the day, or what came up for you, or if this is new to you, like how you're taking it, how you're processing it. But I would like to see these comments, like after we get off here, get a little lit, and let's talk, let's connect and share and heal. Let's heal this. We can together, you know. We can individually, so imagine how powerful it is when we get together for it.
That's right. And let's aptly rename it Druids Day.
Druids Day. I love it.
Yeah. That rolls off.
Day.
All Saints Day. All Druids Day. Either way, it's something that I'll still be holding up a mug of ale and cheersing the old ones.
Yeah, I've got my candle lit. I'm going to keep it lit all day, and I plan on lighting incense and randomly ringing bells throughout the house. And what I really want to do is I just want to embody whatever comes through today, since I've really been becoming more sensitive to the energies and feeling things, that I'm just going to let the healing happen by me moving my body and flowing throughout the day while I get things done, and really alchemizing in that way, and just holding in my heart and in my thoughts and even in my womb space those who didn't survive and those who did. The truth of it. What do you think? Yeah.
Perfect. Very aesthetic, guys. Well, I had something interesting that I wanted to share at some point in this topic. I had a really powerful divine feminine connection last night. Right before I went to bed, I started seeing all of these videos about Hecate and Morrigan, and I leaned over to my partner and I said, "Why is
take them off?"
and all of this dark energy really trying to come through my algorithm right now?" And then I dreamt, and then in my dreams it was like ravens at the crossroads, and I was like, wow, okay. So that energy, that dark heavy, sacred rage, divine feminine is really present today. And however you treat it, may you remember to walk in love and not leading with anger, actual anger. I hope you have a great day and happy Druid's Day.
Happy Druid's Day. Happy All Snakes Day. And keep your inspirations sacred.
No.
Now.
Bye, guys.
Bye.